Hello, everybody out there. This is David Sierra from Cutting Edge Fencing. We are going to be discussing some stuff today that fencing coaches can do to create interactive online content for teaching the sport and working with our more involved athletes. So, as you guys know, we're in the COVID emergency, and it looks like for the foreseeable future, we're going to be doing a lot of this online content. Most of us are not allowed to be in our fencing clubs, or if we can get into our club, you can't be there with students. There's a lot of restrictions around due to public health concerns. And we're starting to try and figure out what our business model, what our plan for training students, everything we need to do going forward is going to look like. And so I wanted to have a conversation today, start to put out some stuff about some ideas that I've had to create interactive content as opposed to just looking at a screen, following along, trying to get some communication going back and forth between the students to work on the core competencies of fencing. And I think that's actually kind of really important. So there's a lot of really cool, engaging content that people are putting out using a number of different platforms regarding using video, remote video, Zoom, YouTube videos, stuff on Facebook, various different things to try and keep our members engaged. And all that's great. But fencing as a sport is something that relies on interaction between you and your opponent. And as fencing coaches, one of the things we do is we teach, we simulate those kind of interactions. We use the stuff we do to be able to create changes in speed, changes in rhythm. Distance is obviously one of the most key things. How do you do those kind of things in this kind of format or in a more interactive format like on Zoom? And after I have this, after we're done with this broadcast, I'm going to open up a Zoom chat for anybody who wants to come on. It's a video thing we can discuss. I'll post a link into that in the comments here when we're done. And I'm just going to sort of walk you through some of the ideas. Now, I want to say something. We are putting this stuff out here because we think it's important to try and keep the ecosystem of fencing alive. Now is not the time for us to be in our own little silos. Now is not the time for us to try and keep our most engaging ideas just to ourselves. We have to try and think about the broader scope of fencing, because as it looks like we're going to be in this this environment for the foreseeable future. I mean, this could, who knows, this is going to be, this could be several more months. We need to try and figure out ways to keep our athletes engaged, to try and figure out some sort of training that they can do, and to try and keep our sport alive. That's our goal right now. Okay, so a lot of the great content people are putting out here, they've been putting out is awesome for doing, for keeping your athletes engaged, for building a sense of community, which is all critically important. But what I want to focus on today are some of these ideas, and a lot of these things are just ideas that are coming into my head. I am not the be all and end all of all fencing knowledge, guys. I think I have a little bit of creativity and a couple of ideas, and I want to try and start a conversation with other good coaches who are working on these things to try and come up with some ideas about how to bridge this gap between the two of us right here and right now. So what can we do? And I've written some notes, and I hope I don't have this all memorized, so I hope you don't mind. I'm going to refer to my notes on a continual basis. So one of the goals that we're trying to think of, as I'm trying to think of as we're trying to create this content, is don't just work their bodies, right? You got to engage their brain. You've got to engage their brain as they're working their bodies. That's really key, right? Because that's one of the things that makes fencing such a cool sport and allows us to do stuff that's very, very different from almost any other sport I can think of, is that interactive combat, right? Well, we can't do the combat, but we can work on the interaction, and we can work on engaging the brain while we're working on engaging the body. So that's our goal, is to try and make things that are responsive for the athlete from the coach, simulating a lesson or simulating the important components of the lesson. We have to now strip down fencing, the teaching of fencing and the teaching of a lesson to its core, most basic competencies. What are the most critical things we have to do in order to create fencing athletes? And how can we deliver that stuff here? Move out all the fluff. Move out all the things. Let's just work on what we can do. Now, I'm a saber coach, so my background, my thinking is saber, but I'm sure a lot of the stuff I'm thinking of is going to be fine for all three weapons. I've got experience in working in different weapons. I've got experience coaching in there, so I am thinking about that, and I'm hoping to reach out not just to my saber guys, my saber community, but the foil and epee community, and hopefully get this dialogue and conversation started across the weapons. Okay, so one really important consideration is you've got to consider your setup. What does your space look like? Now, some of you guys can get into your fencing club, and you can do remote broadcasts, and you can film videos there, and that's good up to a certain point, but remember, that's not where your students are practicing. We made the decision to convert our living room here. Kate and I converted our living room into this broadcast studio because it replicates what our students have available to them at home. And if I can't do what I'm trying to do here, then there's no way my students can do it in their space. You know, I've got a lot of space here, if you think about it. Way more than many of my athletes are going to have access to. Sometimes they're doing it in a garage, which is great. You know, I know some people who've actually got private gyms on their place. Maybe got an upstairs attic or a basement, and those are cool things. But a lot of times we're talking about spaces that have been created out of, you know, the rest of the household, and it has to be put together so that everybody can have dinner. You know, so how do you do that? So we are doing this in our dining room, in our apartment, in the most minimal space that we can do. A couple of things about this. So the choice of the two most difficult things I found as we're doing this are sound and light. Okay, you notice I'm using a sound remote headset here that goes into a thing. I have learned so much about like audiovisual broadcasting tech in the past 3 weeks that you wouldn't believe. So basically what I did was I bastardized components of a replay system and taken the camera and the monitor and the input screen, and that's how I put all this stuff together, along with a few other tech components from pieces at my club and computers from here, and you know, my office computer at the club that I tore down, and the replay computer, and it takes a lot to do this right, you know what I'm saying? But that you kind of got to put that together. So that's really important, because your students have to be able to see and hear what you're doing in order to really deliver good interactive content. There has to be that communication back and forth. So also a thing, consider your student setup. So that's again why we're in this space right here. So where is their camera placed? Okay, in relation to their target, where are they doing things, so on and so forth, and how does that all work together? Now, to go back to my setup. So one of the things, again, I'm a bit of a tech nerd, some of you guys know. I've actually got a second camera over here that I can flip back and forth to. And hopefully it flips over. Nope, doesn't seem to want to work today. And you know, that's what we deal with. Not every piece of technology works. I don't know why that's not working right now. I thought I tested it out, but it's not. And these are some of the challenges you're going to be facing. Is you're in the middle of a session and all of a sudden your camera is not behaving, or your sound cuts out, or YouTube drops, or your internet connection gets overloaded at your house. You know, you're going to deal with this. You got to be flexible. You got to be able to move on. And you got to be able to work with that. I'm going to try one more time flipping over. I'm going to adjust a couple of settings right here. So hopefully this is now where we need it to be. And let's see if this works. Nope, that doesn't want to work. That second camera doesn't want to work today. I don't know why. It's decided it wants to be funny in particular, but there you go. There you have it. Try one more setting here, because I kind of want to show you guys what we're some of the stuff we're doing. Nope. Okay. Well, that's not going to happen. All right. The idea is essentially I've got my camera right here, or this second camera here, and it's focused over here on my target that I've got a really nice light shining on so people can see the things that are happening on my target, so I can make the cuts need to, or if we're foilish, we're talking about making the hits and so on and so forth. Okay, so consider your student setup. Where is their camera, where is their things placed so that they can see the screen while they're trying to do the actions? So we do a lot of work with our students where they're it's off to the side so I can see them, but also sometimes I want them to be able to place their screen here next to their target so that I can interact with them, right? You know, so they can see what I'm doing as they try and hit the target. And we'll get into some of the ideas I've had with that just a little bit about how we're doing those things. Okay, so we'll get back to that in a second. All right. If you want to do things visually, they have to be easy to see. Not everybody has a full HD streaming setup that they can utilize. YouTube and Facebook and Zoom, and all, you know, every other streaming media component you can think of is completely overloaded because everybody's doing this. You know, colleges are pushing out this remote content. High schools and elementary schools and middle schools and preschools and businesses, you know, everybody is using these same platforms. So you may not get HD streaming. You've got to figure out a way to make what you're doing very clear, really obvious. So lighting is a really key important component of that. And let me show you an idea that I had the other day that seemed to really help. Is I took my blade. Now, first of all, because of the space I'm in and the cues that I'm doing, I'm using a number 2 saber. I'm not using a full 5 saber, just so that I don't take off my ceiling fan or something like that as I'm moving it around. And you know, that may be something that you consider your students to do, but certainly as instructors, there's nothing wrong with us using a shorter blade. Well, what I did was I took and I put white tape on the blade, and it makes it a lot easier to see, right? So, right, and I've also got on my mask over here, I really wish I could get the secondary camera so you can see what I'm talking about, but on my mask, I've got zones clearly indicated. Let me move this light here down. Okay. Clearly indicated on the target of where I want them to hit and do stuff. There's another piece of tape over there, piece of tape over there. Here, I'll move this around so you guys can see, you know, the mask. That's the idea. So there you go. And so, you know, it's much easier to see. Ideally, I'd have a black background, but I can't paint the walls of my apartment. So maybe and if as it continues, I'm going to work on trying to get some different backgrounds, put some blankets. I don't know. I'm figuring this out as we go along, right? So, but that white tape on the blade, I have found is really helping my students be able to see what it is they need to do. I've got nice demarcations on the Sabre mask using basically a pad for a mask that I've cut stuff on, and there we go, and you can make your attacks to there, and I can show guys, I want you to cut over here, right, and they're very clear where I want you to do it. Okay, I want you to cut to the top, and it's really easy to see that. Okay, look at the difference if I don't use a blade that has this tape on it. It's much harder to see, right? And you kind of blends in the background. You can't really see it. All right, there you go. So that's that. Okay. So that's one idea. That's one very important thing that I'm kind of exploring and playing with is tape on the blade. Another thing that I'm working on is, I had this idea this morning, is to use colored cards to do different things. So again, this is a visual cue rather than a visual cue rather than an auditory cue. We're doing a lot of auditory cues, but fencing is a visually based sport other than the on-guard ready fence, right? So I'm responding to visual actions and working on that idea for my students. Okay, so I can hold up a card of a different color and they have to do a specific action, right? So they're responding to a visual cue, responding to that. And I had a thought that you probably want to stay away actually from red and green because these are colorblind issues. So if you have any students who are colorblind, so actually I'm going to take out the red and green cards. I'm not going to use them, but I've got 4 other colors here that I can choose from that should be okay. And you know what? Maybe even the orange and the yellow are too close. We'll have to see. I'll be experimenting with these tonight over the next couple of days just to see what I can do. It's an idea of things that can happen with that. Okay. Stuff that you can do to try and get this interaction back and forth with your students is that I've been sort of playing with is okay. So one thing I've done is just simple distance keeping exercises. Right, I'm here, so if I step forward, you need to move back, and if I step back, you need to move forward. And this is a distance keeping exercise. Hey, we've all done this, right? I mean, this is what we do as coaches, right? We use our movement back and forth to be able to do that, and that's a key component figure of coaching fencing. But you can do that here, right? I mean, I can step back and you can have to advance, and I can move forward and you have to retreat. So, integrate that in right away. That should be something you should be integrating in because that works on that control distance. It's that visual response of distance. And so that's one of the things we want. Okay. Can you do actions with the blade that they have to respond to? And the answer is yes. Okay. And this gets into the thing I was talking earlier about where do you position their blade? Where do you put your blade in order to be able to see it? And where does their camera and everything need to be so that you can... So again, this is now assuming that their camera, right, and their screen are sitting right here next to the target where they're going from. Okay? And so what I can do right here is I can, very simple, just, I can give that cue, right? I can open up that line and they have to attack the top of the target. Or I can open up this cue, they have to attack that side. And this cue, and they have to attack over there. Right? And guys, we do this as coaches all the time. Right? This is what we do. That we give these cues and they attack us. And okay, so it's not perfect, right? I can't do a lot of the stuff that I would normally do. So I can't, hey guys, your shoulders are tight. Although that's where the interactive content, where they're on a Zoom screen and you can look at them, everybody in a room, and or one at a time, and say, okay, guys, you need to relax your shoulder. We've done some really good stuff where I'm on this camera giving the cues, and Kate's in another room, or on a different thing, looking at those cues. Looking at the responses from the students, and she's doing the error correction there. So you can work with one of their coaches in your fencing center, and you can divvy that up. So one of you is giving the cues, and the other one's doing the feedback to the fencers. That's kind of cool, and that's actually really good. Nice advantage of that is it gets two coaches on the interactive content at the same time, which is really important for some of the safe sport concerns that we've got to deal with, because this is an online interaction. That stuff hasn't gone away. So, having two coaches or two adults in these sessions at all times is important. But again, you can start to now, bring in the distance component of that, and now they have to attack the head, right? And I can bring the distance component here, and they have to attack the cheek, right? Or I could make the attack, and they have to take distance, and then attack me back. And those are some of the ideas that we're starting to work with in these sessions, these lessons that they can be done. So I got another thought of something that we've done, and this is an exercise that I came up with the other day that seems to be getting some really, really good things. It sort of combines the student space with some auditory cueing that they need to respond to, but then allows them to create the action that they need to do based upon the distance that they're in. So it's kind of cool, right? So the idea is I have them start here on their target, they come on guard, and then I give them a series of footwork commands: retreat, advance, double retreat, jump forward, so on and so forth, and then I tell them to attack. And they have to make the attack in the distance that they're in to the target. And so now they're getting that competency, that core competency of what is the distance I'm trying to hit, and how do I hit it? What footwork do I need to do to go to that space? So those are other things. That's kind of the way we're doing that. The other thing that we're sort of putting together is we're doing some interactions with some games that we do. So we have a game called Numbers. If you guys want to check out some of our live streams, we've done some games on that. Those are recorded. And then we've also got a couple other games we do. We did Maestro Says, sort of Simon Says thing. But again, your goal is to try and engage their brains and not just their bodies. So that's what I challenge you guys to do. See if you can come up with that kind of stuff. I'm going to try and get a Zoom chat together at some point, maybe this weekend, people to try and circle back and have some discussions of this. I think actually we'll not do the Zoom chat right now, but we'll do that later on as we do those this weekend. If people are trying this out, try this, see what you can do with your students, and let's all work together for the betterment of the fencing community. I'll see you guys later. Hey, if you're interested, check out our live stream tonight. We do it 7:30 Central Time every night, and you guys take care.